Shiba Inu and Doge, along with the rest of the crypto markets, have been on a bit of a dip recently. While the rest of the world is panicking, probably because they bought at the top of the move on FOMO without a plan. That's usually how it goes. It's almost always time to start looking for a buy when we have fear in the markets. Hey there, John Henry here, Slingshot Futures Trading Group, SSFTG. Welcome to the video. In this one, I want to take a look at Shiba Inu and Dogecoin to see how they are performing, what the forecast is, and if they're even worth considering as a worthy or holding a worthy spot in our portfolios. Now, if we are considering SHIB and Doge as a long-term play, we've got to dig deeper than just the technicals on the chart. Yes, we're going to look at the technicals too, of course. But how are the companies running? What are they bringing to the table? Is there any drama or BS going on in the community? How's the roadmap? Are there any new developments on the horizon, and are those developments exciting? Do I actually use their products? And if I do, how do I use it? Or if I don't, how are they used? What is the customer experience, right? There is a ludicrous amount of research that goes into fundamental analysis, but it's important to do so we understand our investment fully. One of the unique aspects of crypto as an investment avenue is that we have the ability to test nearly everything ourselves. And that alone puts us ahead of the curve by 1.5 miles. Just use the product, seriously. It's amazing how many people invest in things they have no idea what it is. Then later wonder why the trash platform they were backing just crashed, right? Test it out. Do your due diligence. There's a reason that's a saying. So first up, let's take a look at the charts, starting off with Doge, and get rid of some of the technicals and kind of go through what the charts are looking like first. So from the charting perspective on the technicals, I'm looking at Doge versus USDT, and this is on the Binance platform. You can see that in the top left as far as the charting data feed. Now, looking at the daily chart on Doge, obviously, if we were to look at this, this looks absolutely insane. We've got a low of 0.002 cents and a high of 74 cents. It looks absolutely ridiculous. If we put this in a logarithmic scale, we can actually see what's happening, but that doesn't necessarily help the pricing at all because it's still insane. Going from this low to up here is drastically different than from going from there to there, right? So if we're looking at this from the perspective of the overall move to the upside without logarithmic, it appears as though the market's trying to find a bit of balance. It doesn't feel like Doge really knows where its price is supposed to be. Is it supposed to be more expensive? Is it supposed to be more, a lot cheaper? One of those types of coins that you have millions of? Or is it one of those types of coins that you only have hundreds of, right? Where's Doge supposed to land? One thing's for sure, on the daily chart, it is very obvious that there is a metric ton of support coming in off of the base at around 15 cents. There is a huge amount of support coming in at the 15-cent zone. Now, if we're going across the highs, we put in the high up here at 74 cents, and then the lower high just underneath 60 cents, the next one at 45 cents, and then we've got the next one at 35, and a very close next high at like a few cents underneath that, and where we are now. It's fairly obvious that one thing stands out. We haven't made any new highs, right? As far as a trend perspective, it can't be a bull trend without higher highs. That's not how they work. So as it stands where we are now from a technical perspective, yes, we're holding a very, very nice area of support in the 15-cent range. Is it going to be enough to kick this back to the upside? When I look at this chart, I'm kind of reminiscent of Ethereum back in the day. If we look at Ethereum instead, and look at the way that it was forming back on this original pulse, right? We had this really, really solid, strong rally to the upside, and then it went pulling all the way back really deep, looked like it was going to get going, and kind of shelved out for a while. And then the low broke out and it collapsed. It got absolutely obliterated, all the way from the highs of $14.40 to a low of $81. Okay. Now, when we bring that kind of same mentality over to Doge, actually, hang on one second. We got to get the measurement of that first. If we're looking at the measurement value off of the top to the bottom, it shed about 95% value. So if we're looking at Doge, And where it is now, you can kind of see why I'm a bit nervous, because this looks like Ethereum back in the day. We're building that little shelf. My concern is that it wants to break down and go absolutely haywire to the lows. Now, if that is the case and it wants to follow parity, realistically, we should see about a 95% pullback off of the highs. And if we're looking at a 95% pullback off of the highs, that would put Doge back at around 3 cents. Now, do I want to see Doge at 3 cents? No, absolutely not. I really like what Doge is bringing to the table. I think it's got a lot going for it as far as a currency is concerned, and just the meme factor and the support from the community by itself can be a huge aspect. But we've got to be realistic here. This isn't exactly looking like sunshine and rainbows right now. It looks like it's trying to get a wider pullback. If we look at the overall volume from the bottom all the way up to the top, we can actually see the POC cluster is resting at 6 cents. Well, I mean, from the pullback that we were just talking about, from a value perspective, that would be 92%. Pretty close. I mean, good enough at that point. It's basically lost everything from the top. So the thing here is that Doge isn't necessarily a bad buy. Look at how it played out for Ethereum, right? They needed to get that dive down. They needed to wipe out everybody and then go up from there. And it wasn't without struggle, right? Remember, they put in the low down here at 81, rolled all the way up to almost 400, and then from 400 dropped all the way to 120. So, I mean, there's a lot of volatility in here when you start spanning the years like this. And if we're bringing that to the table with Doge, well, I mean, realistically, if Ethereum is any guiding factor, Doge could go sideways for the next, well, I mean, really, 2018, 1, 2, 3, 4, going on 4 years. So seeing Doge go sideways, if we were to apply the same mentality to what's going on right now, we build the shelf, we pummel down, we hang out here for a little while, and then we see this attempted rally back up to like the 20-cent range, which from a low of 5 cents would be an incredible rally, just to see it drive down back to the 7 or 8 cent range, rally and sideways, and then go absolutely astronomically bullish from there. So keep in mind, right, as a long-term play, that's exactly what we want to see. This dip that we're seeing right now is considered value. Because if we go back and we look, sure, it lost 95% value, and not a soul on the world wants to feel a 95% loss. But we can also factor in that from that low, just back up to the highs was 1,800%. Well, if we assume that Doge is somewhere down here, and there's only a few hundred more percent to go, if you're measuring from bottom to top, obviously you can't go hundreds down, but if we're looking for that little continuation phase and measuring the same mentality, all the way back up to the highs, if we're looking at 1,800% on this dip down, that would put a low right at around 4 cents. And how interesting for the meme factor would it be to see Doge at 420? It fits so perfectly. Now, it doesn't have to. It could stop at 69 over here and have fun that way. But the important thing to remember here is that this is beginning to pull back in value, and it's potentially going to be in value and DCA averaging, in dollar cost averaging, for 4 years or so before we actually see the continuation. But on that continuation, back up to the highs and potentially significantly further is on the table. Now, over on SHIB, this one's a little bit different, obviously, because it's on the newer spectrum. It hasn't been around as long as Doge has. But from the overall perspective, we can see a very similar situation. Doge and SHIB tend to move together with one another. And if we're looking at this initial rally up, there was a huge amount of volume that traded down in the 0.0000698 area. I mean, obviously, that's so far down there. So if we're looking from an order flow perspective, if we go from the low to the high, obviously the POC is going to be way back here because there's just so many coins down there at 716. Now, currently it's trading at 3,338, so that would be a massive drop. But if we look at this comparatively to what we were just talking about on Doge, from the top down to that low would be about 92%. That's the exact same thing that Doge was looking at as far as a value pullback. So we can see the technical analysis side of things, the charts look almost identical, and they're both calling for a very, very similar thing. a much wider pullback that is expected to last potentially 4 or more years before we finally see the market start rallying up, with lows on SHIB as low as the 700s and maybe even a little bit underneath that before seeing inevitable rallies all the way back up. And again, if we're looking at that 1800% rally off the lows, then realistically that puts SHIB all the way up into 12,000s, 13,000s. So you can see where it is now at 3,333. That's still a good value, and that's why I like these areas as a nice zone. But we've got to be realistic. A larger pullback on both SHIB and Doge, from what we're seeing technically, make a lot of sense. Now, as for the use case, both are growing very rapidly, obviously, right? In where and how they're accepted and how they're used and all of that. And actually, at the time of recording this, Tesla just recently announced that they were accepting Doge in their online store. So obviously, mass adoption is a big thing that's going on with Doge and SHIB, of course. And we also hear almost every day another business accepting one or the other, or both. And that list keeps growing every day. Now, I have personally used and transferred both, and I haven't had any issues with either one as far as a use case goes. So I don't really have anything to add to that side, other than, we just kind of have to keep our eyes on it from the perspective of growth. Now, both coins operate as a payment gateway for the most part. Doge, 100% right on the main page. If we look at Doge, it's designed to be a peer-to-peer network currency. And that's its purpose, right? That's how it's designed. And SHIB is kind of in the same boat. That said, Doge is sticking pretty much exclusively to the currency side of things, right? We are money good, use Doge. That's it. There's no extra stuff on top of that, and there's nothing wrong with it. That's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean that it's going to lose all its direction and everything's going. Bitcoin does the same thing. Do what it's good at and stick to that, right? Now, SHIB, however, is going in a little bit of a different direction. There's a lot going on in the SHIB environment as a whole. And, along with Doge, obviously, they both act as a currency. We understand that. But that's where they really stop being similar. SHIB is now offering the Shiba Swap, which broke down their currencies into 3 subfolios, if that's what we want to go with. The first one is obviously the OG token itself, SHIB, right? This is the homeboy, the main one. That's the one that started it all, good old SHIB. But when we go further than that, there's also Bone and Leash. I love how they kind of stick with the naming structure, but Bone is what you bury, right? And you are earning Bone as a liquidity provider. So when you go into the SHIB swap over here, you can see that you can dig, and there are tons of bones underground. And when you're digging, you're providing liquidity, and you earn bones because you're digging up the bones, right? I love the naming structure, like I said. So this is liquidity provisions. It's LP. That's all that bones are. That's what you earn in. Now, you can go beyond that, and you can turn around and bury those bones over here to stake them. That's all that is. It's just staking the tokens. But again, the naming structure makes it so cool. And I know I spend a lot of time on that, and it seems largely irrelevant, but that's important. Because if it's something that we can remember and it sticks in our head, well, we always come back to it, right? Like the bone folio. Or I'm digging for liquidity, or I'm burying my bones. Those are the kinds of things that you remember, and that's important to consider. Now, when you bury those bones, you're staking them for the rewards and all of that fun stuff. But there's also Leash, which is the second incentivized one. That's the second incentivized token on SHIB Swap. And Leash holders, it's just another way that they can offer more rewards. It's very DeFi-esque of the entire SHIB marketplace. So SHIB has great developments going on. Right? They've got a lot of good things going on, and they're branching into several aspects of the market, while Doge is sticking to more of a currency flow for right now, at least. Both offer fantastic opportunities, and in fact, from a technical perspective, they look very, very similar. And both have been widely adopted and are getting more and more adoption across the meme coin marketplace, as well as the real world marketplace now. Tesla and all of these other names are starting to accept them. SHIB seems to have a slightly brighter future, in my opinion, with all of the new developments, but both seem to be demonstrating strong elements that easily allow them to both earn a spot in the portfolio, or the bone folio, or whatever we want to call it. But it does seem like SHIB seems to be the stronger contestant currently, with more on the development horizon to drive their value further up. So I hope this video helped you out in your approach to SHIB and Doge and all of those, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below and I can get you covered from there. That's going to do it though. Have a fantastic rest of your day and we'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.